The slaves are marched through the scorching desert by the guards. Among them is Ash, a man from the 21st century who does not belong. Just yesterday, Ash was working at a store with his wife, Linda, and everything was usual. One night, him and Linda decided to drive out to the woods to go to an abandoned cabin. In the cabin, Ash found an ancient book called the Necronomicon with ancient passages and satanic drawings in it. When opening the book, he released demons which found Linda. The demons went for Ash next, and possessed his hand. To stop the chaos, he chopped off his hand with a chainsaw, but the demons did not go away. They came back and opened a portal to 1300 AD which eventually sucked Ash and his car in. He was thrown out of the sky in the medieval times and a man in armor approached him. The man thought Ash was part of Henry's army, and Henry was a slave being held by Arthur's kingdom. Knights immediately started attacking Ash's car as he was talking to Arthur. A wizard said that Ash was the chosen one, but Arthur did not listen and put Ash into slavery with Henry. As the slaves were marched down to the castle, the wizard picked up Ash's chainsaw. Ash was amazed by the castle and its size as he was whipped and dragged along. The people were throwing rocks at Henry and Ash as they were sent to the pit. A woman asked Arthur about her brother, but Arthur said that he had died in battle to Henry's army. The woman thought that Ash was one of Henry's knights, so she grabbed his hair and spit on his face. When they got to the pit, the slaves' shackles were removed and the people were chanting for them to be thrown into their death. Ash looked back at Sheila and she glared at him. Henry introduced himself to Ash, but Ash insulted him and made fun of his title as Duke of London. Henry tried to attack Arthur and claimed that Arthur started the war, but soldiers held him back with a sword. The soldiers opened the pit and immediately one of Henry's soldiers was thrown down into the darkness. A few seconds later, blood came spewing out from the top. The man tried to run away, but Arthur shot him with a crossbow. They grabbed Ash next, but he was too scared to go in. He tried to explain that he did not know who Henry was, but they did not listen. Sheila threw a rock at him and then a guard pushed him down. At the bottom of the pit, a pool of water broke his fall and he survived. There were two spike walls either side of him, and a cave to the left. Behind him, a hand was emerging from the water. As Ash was looking around, a monster jumped out of the water and startled him. It started chasing him backwards, and then punched him in the face over and over again. He was knocked down by the monster and the crowd cheered as he was punched in the groin. Then, Ash throws the monster to the ground using his legs around its neck. Henry cheers for him while the rest of the crowd are annoyed. They begin pulling a chain to close the spike walls in, and as Ash notices, he beats up the monster and throws it into the spikes. The wizard calls from the top of the pit and throws down Ash's chainsaw to him, and he grips it onto his missing hand. Ash uses the chainsaw to behead the monster, and then tries to climb out. As he grabs a rock, another monster jumps out at him and starts attacking him. He chops off its hand and uses his belt to grip onto the chain as it moves up. As he is going up, the monster grabs onto his foot and tries to pull him down. Ash's grip loosens on the belt, but he eventually kicks the monster away and makes it out of the pit. He climbs out and the crowd are shocked. He punches Arthur to the ground and begins scaring the crowd. He randomly picks on a bald knight and pushed him repeatedly to scare the crowd even more. He then turns to Henry and dismisses him and his army. Henry laughs in everyone's faces and rides away on his horse. Arthur tries to stop them but they do not listen and ride away. Arthur takes a sword and threatens Ash for disrespecting him, but Ash pulls out a double-barrel shotgun and shoots Arthur's blade into two pieces. He tells everyone what a shotgun is and realizes he has all the power now. Suddenly, he turns back and shoots down a monster that climbed out of the pit, and then asks how he will get out of here. That night, the women are treating him like a king, and then Sheila comes over to apologize. Then, the wizard walks in and says that for Ash to escape, they need the Necronomicon. The wizard tells him that he is the only one who will be able to get it, as he is the promised one. Ash tries to tell him that he does not care, but he is interrupted by water on the floor. It leads to a pipe held by an old woman next to a fireplace. Suddenly, the old lady turns around and begins screaming and saying that Ash will never be able to retrieve the Necronomicon. The woman collapses, and as Arthur approaches her body, Ash warns him that it is a trap. As Ash expected, the old woman jumped up and thrown Arthur and Ash across the room. The lady goes for Sheila, but then Ash gets in the way and hits the woman with a shotgun. A knight comes running at the old lady, but she throws boiling water over him and he falls down. She hits the blacksmith with a pot, and as she is about to pour boiling water on the blacksmith, Ash shoots the pot out of her hands. She runs at Ash, but he kicks her and shoots her. He shoots her again and hits her, and then shoots her behind his back to finish her off. The wizard reveals that the old woman was a normal lady who transformed into that monster when the Necronomicon was mentioned. The wizard is doubtful of Ash because his hand is missing, so they go to the blacksmith and make a metal hand for him. He crushes a chalice with ease with his new hand. Sheila enters with a blue shirt she sewed for him, but he does not acknowledge her and keeps working. He tells her not to touch anything and takes the shirt to use as a blanket rather than as a shirt. She finally gives up with the disrespect and slaps him before walking out. Ash runs back to her right before she leaves and kisses her. He becomes in love with Sheila very quickly. As he is standing at the top of the castle, she gives him a grey cape to keep him warm, and then hugs him. The next morning, Ash and the wizard leave the castle to go and take the Necronomicon. The soldiers stop at a dirt path which leads to a cemetery where all the demons are. The wizard tells Ash to recite 3 words before he takes the book, and they repeat them over and over again. Before Ash leaves, he tells them to promise him that they will find a way for him to escape when he gets the book. Ash finds the cemetery in a forest. As he goes deeper into the cemetery, it gets foggier and smoke fills up his vision. His horse senses something is wrong, and then something is awoken. It is the same entity from the forest of the cabin where Linda died and Ash was sucked in. Ash ran away on his horse as he was being chased and had to jump over logs and run between trees, but could not lose the demons. Ash turned back around and hit a branch which made him fall off of his horse into a muddy puddle. He got up again and started running. He fell down a hill and jumped over a wall to get away, but it still chased him. Ash ran to a nearby windmill where it started banging on the door, but after 30 seconds, it stopped. Gears began spinning above him as sunlight rays shone in through holes in the building. He stays in the windmill until night time. He put his hands near the fire to warm up, but when he looked over at the mirror, the reflection was a different version of him. In fear, he destroys the mirror and goes back to the fire. Behind him, tiny versions of him crawl out of the mirror shards and grab a fork which they stab Ash in the butt with. The rest of the smaller versions of Ash grabbed his shotgun and used it as a cannon to shoot him, but they missed. Ash grabbed the fork and threw it at a mini Ash. Another group of mini Ashes tripped Ash up with a broom, and Ash's face fell onto the burning hot fireplace. He used a metal spatula to disconnect his face from the hot stone, but immediately slipped on salt and found himself being held down by many Ashes as one of them flung themselves into Ash's mouth from a high point in the windmill. Ash accidentally swallowed the mini Ash and tried coughing him up, but could not. Then, he spotted a boiling hot kettle. The mini Ash was irritating Ash's stomach, so Ash poured boiling hot water down his throat to burn the mini Ash. Just when Ash thought the suffering had stopped, an eye began blinking on his shoulder. He ran outside in fear, trying to get rid of the eye, but it began growing into another body. The other Ash that was growing started insulting Ash and copying everything he said, and then crawled across the grass. Once they reached a deep point in the forest, Ash broke fully out of Ash's body and they both stared at each other. Evil Ash started making fun of Ash and then he started dancing and punching Ash. Once Ash had had enough, he pulled out a shotgun and shot Evil Ash. He dragged his body through the forest to the windmill where he chained him to a stone table. He beheaded Evil Ash with a chainsaw and put his body in a bag and buried it in the forest. The head of Evil Ash started talking to Ash whilst being buried, so Ash threw dirt on his face. Ash finished burying Evil Ash and got back on his horse to go back to find the Necronomicon. He found the graves and walked up the steps to the book. To his surprise, there were 3 books rather than just one. He did not know what to do, so he started talking to himself, and eventually chose the bottom book. When he opened it, he immediately had his hand nearly sucked into a deep hole, and then the force of the book was too much, and he fell into the book. He climbed back out with all of his strength with an elongated face. He started shaking his face to return to normal, and it worked in the end. He had a dilemma between the other 2 remaining books, but chose the lowest one next, which bit him when he tried to grab it. He managed to get it off of his hand, but it squealed and came flying back to him. It started biting his hand again, so he threw it away again, but this time it came back and started biting the back of his head. The next time he threw it, it flew back to its original position, leaving only one book remaining. Before he took it, he remembered the words he had to say. When it came to saying them, he could not remember them exactly. He recited 2 words and could not remember the last one. He didn't know if he had done it or not, so he grabbed the book and made his way down the steps again. Suddenly, graves started breaking and thunder struck throughout the lands. The wizard knew that something was wrong and the dead had been awoken. Sheila is worried for Ash after seeing a man being struck by lightning and a wheelbarrow tipped over. As Ash runs away, explosions break out around him and he is tripped up by a skeleton hand coming out of the ground. As he tries to get up, more skeleton hands hold him down and grab his face. Then, they begin slamming his face into a rock and sticking their fingers into his mouth and nose. He blocks a punch and sticks his tongue out, but they grab his tongue and poke his eyes. He makes it off the ground and pulls off a skeleton's arm, grabs the book and runs away. He escapes on his horse as Evil Ash awakens from the grave. This all happened because he did not say the words correctly. They open the castle gate once they spot Ash coming and he is cheered on as he walks through the crowd. The wizard asks him if he said the words correctly, and he replies truthfully that he didn't say every syllable correctly. The wizard calls him a fool and states that all mankind is doomed if the dead are released. Ash tries to argue that they said he will be able to go back home if he gets that book for them, and Arthur says that he should too. When the wizard walks away in disappointment, everyone else does too. Everyone had lost hope in Ash apart from Sheila, who still believed in him. Even Ash himself told her there's no hope left and she walked away. As she was walking away, a winged creature swooped down and snatched her from the castle. The archers could not shoot it down, so Ash grabs his sword and chases it, but he cannot catch up with it. At the cemetery, they open more and more graves and more skeletons come out. Evil Ash wants to retrieve the book and kill all the humans if he has to. The skeletons push Sheila up the rocks to Evil Ash, who grabs her and pulls down her clothes. He tries to kiss her, but his deformed face makes it impossible. More people from the castle are captured and taken to the graveyard. Soldiers arrive back at the castle and inform Arthur that the Army of Darkness are 2 days away. Everyone begins panicking, not knowing what to do, but Ash has a plan. He wants to stay at the castle to fight off the skeletons. At first, nobody agrees with him because they only have 60 men. But then Ash suggests that they get Henry's army to fight with them. Still, nobody agrees with him, until the blacksmith says he will do it. That causes a chain of people agreeing, and eventually everyone is ready to fight. Meanwhile, Evil Ash has possessed Sheila at the graveyard, and calls all of his skeleton soldiers to start making their way to the castle to retrieve the Necronomicon. Ash gives a motivational speech to his soldiers, and they bring in his car that fell down with him. They repair the car at the blacksmith and add some machines which will tear through the army. After a whole night of working, the car is ready for battle, so Ash begins training the soldiers to fight. That night, a soldier comes running back to tell everyone that the skeletons are near. Ash sees them emerge from behind the hill, and looks back at the Necronomicon sealed behind metal bars. They close the drawbridge as skeletons line up outside the castle, followed by Evil Ash and Sheila. Then, they attack, and Arthur gets the flaming arrows ready. The torch boy lights all of the arrows, and then Arthur calls to fire. It destroys the front line, but many more come. They light bags of gunpowder and launch them as catapults at the skeletons. It does more damage than the arrows and destroys shields and skeletons all over. Evil Ash is angry at his soldiers, so he tells them to do better, so they use a piece of wood as a drawbridge and beat at the castle door with a giant log. The humans throw rocks from the castle walls to crush the skeletons, but skeletons further back shoot them with crossbows. Finally, they break through the door and infiltrate the castle. The soldiers try to hold them off but do not have enough power, and are easily pushed out by the skeletons. More and more men are being killed by the second, but then the blacksmith and some soldiers do what Ash taught them, and use spears to attack the skeletons. Arthur is walking through the battlefield telling his men to fight properly, and then suddenly, the door to the blacksmith collapses and Ash's car comes driving out. It has a pike on the front and 2 fans to kill skeletons. Ash drives through skeletons and turns the battle around, but then is distracted by Sheila pretending to be normal. He crashes the car and evil Ash enters the castle. Ash looks around, but then evil Sheila starts attacking him with a spear. He dodges attack after attack, and eventually kicks her back and she falls into the pit. When almost all hope is lost, Henry arrives with his army and begin dominating the battlefield. Evil Ash is still fighting, and climbs up a ladder leading to the cage where the Necronomicon is held. As Ash is about to follow him up and fight him, evil Ash pushes the ladder down. Ash finds a rope which he chops to make a boulder drop and to make him go up. The boulder drops on skeletons as Ash fins evil Ash. Ash fights his way through 7 skeletons and then Sheila jumps onto him and covers his eyes so that evil Ash can grab the Necronomicon. Ash gets Sheila off of him, but she attacks him again, so he throws her over the wall with a spear and she falls down. Meanwhile, evil Ash is grabbing the book. Ash throws a spear through his chest, but evil Ash just pulls it right back out, and pulls out a sword. Ash charges with his spear but evil Ash breaks Ash's spear immediately and kicks him down. Ash holds the sword as evil Ash tries to stab him, and with all of his strength, hits evil Ash with the sword, making him fall back. Evil Ash fell into the Necronomicon, and instead of taking it, chased Ash up the stairs. Ash pushes a skeleton off at the top of the stairs and takes his sword, but another skeleton at the top of the stairs corner him between evil Ash and him. Ash fights a skeleton on one side and evil Ash on the other side as they move up and down the stairs. Ash dodges evil Ash and makes him stab a skeleton. Evil Ash takes the skeleton's sword and fights Ash with 2 swords. Ash holds off evil Ash and eventually stabs him in the shoulder, flips over him and stabs evil Ash in the back. Evil Ash pushes Ash down the stairs and throws Ash's sword that he stabbed him with at him, but Ash dodges it. Ash dodges more attacks as evil Ash jumps down the stairs and begins attacking him even more. Ash punches evil Ash and grabs a torch which he lights evil Ash on fire with. He grabs a rope and swings like Tarzan to kick evil Ash off of the walls whilst evil Ash is on fire, but then evil Ash comes climbing back up as a skeleton with no flesh. Ash fights him with his torch again, but evil Ash manages to disarm Ash and the torch goes flying into gunpowder, and lights a rope leading to a catapult. Ash is thrown off of the wall, and evil Ash jumps down with the book, and says goodbye to Ash, thinking he has won the battle, but Ash hits the Necronomicon out of evil Ash's hands with a sword on the ground and cuts a rope to fling evil Ash into the sky where the gunpowder explodes him. Everyone cheers and skeletons run away. Ash goes to Sheila and wakes her up, and she is back to normal and they hug, but everyone suddenly tenses up as Arthur and Henry are still rivals. Ash and Sheila stand in the middle and try to calm down the situation, but then to everyone's surprise, Henry and Arthur go to the middle and hug each other. Then, everyone mixes together and becomes one, as they win the battle and triumph together. Henry and Arthur shake hands with Ash, and the next day in the king's room in the castle, the wizard gives Ash a potion that will bring him back to the 21st century if he drinks it and says the 3 words. He leaves the castle with Sheila, and kisses her goodbye before leaving on his horse. That night, he is back in his time working in the 21st century again, telling a customer about his story. As he is talking to another customer, the alarm goes off and a woman down the aisle had been consumed by the Necronomicon too. It had followed him to the real world. The lady was about to throw a heavy box onto the customer, but then Ash breaks the glass and grabs a shotgun to shoot it out of her hands. He slides across a table and shoots the lady as she begins floating. She jumps at Ash, but he attacks her with the shotgun and shoots her one last time in the air, killing her. The customer he saved comes over to hug him, and they fall in love as the movie ends.